the first week of the Ethereum ETFs is done. And guess what? The number of net flows is minus 341 million US dollars. I don't think that's a number that many of us expected, given all the hype and anticipation over the last couple of weeks and months. And of course, now people are big to say Ethereum is dead or the ETFs are a complete failure. But is it though? So one thing we're going to do is take a look at the events of the past week, and I'm going to share my thoughts on the current situation and where we might potentially go from here. But first of all, let's take a step back. What happened last week? So on Tuesday, the 23rd of July, that's when the newborn 8 were approved to start trading with their ETFs. The newborn 8 being the companies who have the ETFs of Ethereum. Namely, we have Grayscale, we have BlackRock, Bitwise, Fidelity, Franklin and Templeton, Invesco, 21 Shares, and Van Eck. And some of those names might actually sound very familiar because they have, in the end, also Bitcoin ETFs. But many of you might be also still wondering, why do ETFs exist in the first place? Why the hell do people not invest into the underlying asset, which is Ethereum and Bitcoin? Well, for investors, it can be quite difficult to invest into crypto. So ETFs give a simplified way for investors and institutions to get exposure to Ethereum and Bitcoin without having to deal with the complexity of crypto. So that's why these ETFs exist and make it very easy for many investors and institutions to put their money into without having to worry about, I don't know, wallets and exchanges, etc. Now, let's take a look at some numbers. And for that, we're going to go to my screen. And here you can see this tweet from, or now we should say probably post on X, not tweet anymore. So here we see this post from Sasa.eth, who posted a picture of the past week's ETF net flow. And we can see that on Tuesday here on the left side, the 23rd, that's when things launch. So you see the listings of the days. On the top, you see the different ETFs that exist. And we see two from Grayscale, and I'll get to that in a second. But overall, on the first day, we can see a net positive inflow of 107 million, which is not too bad really, right? The charge obviously led by BlackRock with 266.5 million, followed by Bitwise with 204 million. But I think what most people are eyeing right now and looking at is this big scary number over here. 284 million in outflows just on the first day. And that continues every day in the reds until it leads up to a total of 1.5 billion of outflows in the past week, which brings us to the net number of 341 million negative flows over the past week. So what does that mean and what actually happened? So I mentioned the two different Grayscale funds over here, right? Here and here. So one of them is the Ethereum Trust that already exists for years and years. So that's actually not the ETF itself. And the trust was a way for investors to gain exposure when nothing else was out there. So this Grayscale Trust has actually quite a high fee for people to invest into. It's like 2.5%. So one thing that could be happening now is that people are moving out their investments from this trust into either maybe the Grayscale Trust or maybe a whole different other provider where the fees are actually way lower. Usually it's, I think, around 0 to 1% what the fees are for the Ethereum ETFs. So that could be one reason. The other thing is that I know that this Grayscale Trust has actually a 6-month lockup period. So might be that people now are able to gain access to their investments and they want to maybe redistribute their investments into other assets or cryptos and whatsoever given the market conditions right now, or simply take profits. So this is why we're seeing all these outflows overall. But what does it mean? Well, don't panic, because, and I remind you that we actually have seen this one before. So if we remember how the Bitcoin ETFs were launched, we see here on the left side the Bitcoin flows since January. And just to explain, this purple bar over here is also the Bitcoin Trust of Grayscale. So we can see here on the bottom are all the months. Starting from mid-January, we see a tremendous amount of outflows for weeks and months, right? With the, what was it here? Nearly 700 million on the 17th of January. Absolutely insane. And that continued until basically, and slowed down only in April, end of April, until in May it basically stopped, and then it kicked off again. But yeah, that's a different story. So in the end, we've seen this one before, and I don't know why people are panicking right now, because we should have learned our lesson right now, and we should apply the experience of what we've learned from this Bitcoin ETF launch and generally the past months of experience with the Bitcoin ETFs to the Ethereum ETF launch. Now, I know you cannot compare Bitcoin to Ethereum, but in the end, those are the big two that have Ethereum right now. Maybe like with Solana, the big three, and the Solana ETF may be coming in the far future, let's say. But in the end, I think even though we cannot compare the Bitcoin overall value that went into there with the ETF launch of Ethereum, I think it's going to be a net positive for Ethereum. In the end, if we just remember and think back how Ethereum and Bitcoin reached the all-time highs in the past, that was purely through the momentum in retail. There was no institutional money, and there's an amazing picture that I want to show you, which is this one here. The 2021 all-time high, standing on very shaky legs, and on the right we have the 2024 all-time high, built on a solid foundation of nation states, ETFs, Wall Street. I mean, this is more Bitcoin than Ethereum, but in a way it's very similar. So I think in general, we can expect it to be net positive for Ethereum. What are analysts saying, and what is going on X? So basically, you can find any different opinion on X or in the internet. You can find articles that are bullish or bearish for ETH. You can find posts on X doing the same. So if we take a look, for example, Ignas DeFi, ETH is in limbo. Ethereum failed to scale the L1 while Solana rapidly gains ground. L2 scaling isn't adding value to Ethereum. Airdrop farming isn't enticing anymore. Even ETFs couldn't ignite FOMO. So taking a stand here that ETH is not doing well, and people should take a look at Solana, but I'll speak about that a bit later. But then on the other hand, you see Teddy here, who's saying dumping ETH here when the monthly looks like this with a freshly approved ETF is straight up dumb. You will buy it back above $10,000. And Elia, who is saying buying Ethereum now is like buying it at $400 in 2020. So in the end, different opinions. You can find anything. I can see many comments who are saying Ethereum is dead or the ETF is a complete failure, but people seem to have forgotten how the Bitcoin launched looked like in the end. And I think we would be all doing well to really hope that this works out, because in the end, there are only two assets that have ETFs, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yes, Solana in the far future, but I think Ethereum will determine if there are more ETFs like this going to come our way, and this will determine the success of crypto in the long run. Speaking of which, we also see a strong correlation between Ethereum's momentum and price action to all the other altcoins that are out there. If we take a look at this chart over here, we can see the crypto correlation. Now, in a nutshell, on this chart, just to quickly explain, the closer it is to 1, the more it reacts the same way as Ethereum does. If it is more towards -1, it does the exact opposite of what Ethereum is doing. So what in terms of buys and trades, etc. And if we look at this 1 year historical period, we can see these are the top 250 altcoins. So most of them over the past year are highly correlated with Ethereum itself, with Solana being at 0.98 over the past year. So high correlation to the price of Ethereum. Okay, now if we take the past 6 months, for instance, the story looks different, and Solana is breaking its shackles from Ethereum, and we can see that it has the correlation has actually went down, but it's still highly correlated. So what I want to say is we would all do well if we were to support Ethereum the best way we can and hope it does well, because in the end this will very much determine as well how crazy things get during the next bull run. Just as a reminder of how money flows in crypto, and this is a representation of the alt season, but in general, first of all, phase 1, money goes into Bitcoin. So all eyes on Bitcoin. This is where we are right now. We're hoping for Bitcoin to explode. Phase 2, Ethereum blows up. And when Ethereum blows up, then people take the money out and rotate them into altcoins to see further gains. So we are all going to do well if we hope that Bitcoin, of course, but also Ethereum do well, because there's a high correlation between the success of Bitcoin and the performance of all other altcoins out there. All right, but where is Ethereum going from here? Well, honestly speaking, I think the next weeks are going to be quite volatile. I think we're going to continue to see outflows from this Grayscale trust. I hope not for months and months. I saw an article where they're saying for at least 30 days until maybe it slows down. And let's also not forget that it usually takes time for ETFs and the institutions behind the ETFs to actually talk to the investors, sell the ETFs, explain them why they should invest. But I think this is going to come, but it usually takes a couple of weeks until we see the effects of the ETFs really taking place. And right now, the downturn momentum is probably going to continue. Hopefully, we're going to stay stable here, but I think here we should expect high volatility in the first place. That said, I do think that the Ethereum price could still go up in disregards of the performance of the Ethereum ETFs. And the reason that I'm saying this is that right now, Bitcoin is basically trying to break the resistance of its old all-time high of 69,000. So we see that constantly bouncing against the 69,000 barrier, trying to break it. Now also with the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, like there's a lot of tension right now around Bitcoin. And I think if it does manage to break its old all-time high for real, and maybe even potentially go beyond its current all-time high, I think it will take the whole market with it, just like as I showed you in the picture right now. So I think it can still go up in disregards of the Ethereum ETF performance. I think in the long run, the ETF performance will just boost it even further. But I think all eyes in general are more looking towards Bitcoin and its price. In the end, the long-term outlook for Ethereum remains bullish, and I think it's a net positive thing that these institutions are coming in and pumping their money into Ethereum. I think that can only be a positive thing for crypto in general. Yes, we will see some more volatility over the next couple of weeks and months, but I think it should be able that we break the old all-time high at some point in time, given the momentum that we're seeing right now. And I mean, you can see for yourself, right? I'm very careful with predictions and price predictions, because who knows where the price is going. But, you know, some people are thinking it'll go to 6,000. Some people say it will go to 10,000 or even higher. And the higher it gets, the better. But like, let's see how it goes. But I think in general, we've never seen a period in time where we've seen so much interest from institutions, from countries, etc. And in the end, this is also what drives a lot of momentum in crypto in general. The way that crypto works is when there's a lot of attention and a lot of eyeballs, usually those projects do pretty well. And right now there's a lot of eyeballs on Ethereum. So I think this can just be net positive. So don't panic. We've seen this all before with the Bitcoin ETF launches, but expect a bit of volatility over the next couple of weeks and months. But until then, don't freak out. Don't do anything dumb and sell your stuff and whatsoever. Do your own research, obviously. But what do you think? Where do you stand when it comes down to Ethereum? Are you excited? Are you still invested? Where do you think the price is going to head to? 6, 10, 15,000 or even more? What is your time frame? I'm curious to know what the opinions are out there, not only on X and on some different articles. So your opinion is important. So drop it down in the comments down below. And if this video provided you with some insight, then make sure to give us a like, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell down below for more crypto updates like this or some deep dives into some different projects. We'd very much appreciate it. With that said, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.